Shabbat Shalom, my friends. Well, Purim is over and Passover is coming rushing toward us. There are 4 special Torah readings for Shabbatot leading up to Pesach. This Shabbat morning is called Shabbat Parah. When we read Numbers 19, 1 to 22, in addition to the regular Torah reading, the additional to the regular Sedra, known as Ki Tissa, our Sedra, Exodus 30, verse 11 and following. Our teachers wanted to help us get ready for the obligation to show up in Jerusalem during Passover with our own sacrifices. So the passage from Numbers is to help us deal with the possibility that we had come into contact with a dead body and thus are impure and thus cannot go to the temple to bring our sacrifice. I'd like to introduce you now to the Parah Adumah, the Red Heifer. It's great, but it's not going to be our focus this week. Fascinating topic. A pure, absolutely red in every possible way heifer, an animal totally without blemish, is to be ritually slaughtered, its body consumed by fire, turned into ashes, and those ashes would then become a means of purification so that that individual who came near a dead body could in fact go to Jerusalem. Oh, and by the way, the person who prepared the ashes is rendered impure as he carries out a task to make somebody else pure. Does this seem at all rational? Nope, no, not really. It's one of those mitzvot that is called a chok, a rule that never could have been deduced on its own. Confusing? Some commentators even believe that King Solomon couldn't figure out what the Parah Adumah was doing. Later rabbis would assert, well, that those ashes from the Parah Adumah will be necessary at the time of the Messiah. We'll wait. But in Midrash Tanchuma we read, let this red heifer atone for what the Israelites did in worshiping the golden calf. A heifer for a calf. And thus we connect this super rational or non-rational chok with the disaster that was the golden calf. Our Sedra this week speaks about Moses' delay in descending Mount Sinai and the people's impatient demand to Aaron to give them something physical, something tangible to worship, just as they had witnessed being done in Egypt. The Egyptians worshipped, among other things, a bull called Apis. So this was a comfortable norm for the former slaves. A calf, that works. But things are a lot more complicated here than mere syncretism. That brings us to King Jeroboam. Now, you might know the word Jeroboam because it is the name given to a 3-liter container of fine wine. And by the way, a Rehoboam is 4.5 liters. How this system developed, don't ask. I don't have a clue. If you know, drop me a note, let me know. Jeroboam was the first king to reign over the separatist northern kingdom of Israel. In order to solidify his break from what is now the southern kingdom and the temple in Jerusalem, Jeroboam established sanctuaries in Bethel and in Dan in the north. And in both sanctuaries he placed a golden calf. There are some Bible scholars who believe that our passage in Exodus is a late addition to the Torah, inserted there by those who vigorously opposed what Jeroboam had done. The story of the golden calf is thus a barely veiled assault on the northern kingdom, its worship sites, even on its monarchy and its priesthood. But, geopolitics aside, the meaning of the golden calf episode as written here continues to provide a treasure house of rich theological, psychoanalytic, interpersonal material. Do something unusual. I want here to strongly suggest that you read the chapter on Ki Tissa in Aviva Zornberg's magisterial volume, The Particulars of Rapture. Don't deny yourselves access to insights from Zornberg in this chapter that will change the way you look at all biblical materials. Taking the golden calf episode now, just as the text relates it, we come immediately to confront a series of powerful themes. The first theme, human impatience and our thirsting for an immediate resolution of complicated materials. Moses has experienced the presence of God and the gifting of Torah atop Sinai. The people are waiting down below. The distance between heaven and earth could not be greater. Moses is in an ecstatic relationship with the source of the universe, and the people are profoundly annoyed that Moses is taking too long to get down. Anxiety, fear, sense of betrayal, lack of understanding, all that fills the empty space between heaven and earth. And when that happens, the Midrash tells us that Satan intervened to take advantage of this situation. Satan puts on what we might today call a sound and light show, and the people began seeing Moses as no longer living. They experienced deprivation and a sense of abandonment. The nurturing and comforting presence of their leader no longer available. The golden calf, therefore, is not just something that comes to represent God, but also to represent the individual who in their eyes brought God into their midst. As much as the golden calf becomes an object of worship, it also attempts to rebuild the nexus between people and deity. Next, God now refers to the Israelites as a stiff-necked people. That's us. Stiff-necked, resistant to change, inflexible, unable to grow, resisting reality, even as it spools out in front of their eyes. This is our second theme. Being loyal to the past is more than a virtue. It is also a stumbling block toward the future. Remembering is one of the core descriptives of our humanity. Worshipping what we remember distorts another descriptive of our humanity, the ability to be flexible, the capacity to adapt, to look forward tomorrow with a positive sense of anticipation. But now, the people see that whatever Moses is doing, it's an act of betrayal. A betrayal of the world of belief that they had acquired in Egypt. Third thing, powerful in its own right. God now wants to destroy the people. God wants to punish their infidelity by having Moses become another Abraham, relaunching the covenantal enterprise. And Moses won't have it. He sees God's response as unhelpful rigidity on God's part. We all remember Abraham's arguments with God. We should remind ourselves about how Moses rebukes God here and demands God's understanding of what is actually going on. There's so much more, many more themes in these texts. Zornberg's chapter, my friends, a must. But so is the invitation to bring the themes of the golden calf into our own lives. How far will impatience and an unwillingness to struggle on for better outcomes take us? How far? And how healthy is a worship of the past that blocks our ability to grow and change? And finally, why? Why can't we challenge how we view God to be acting in our lives? God has been wrong before. We have a right to question maybe God can be wrong again. This is a fabulous Sedra. Have a great week. See you next week. Don't build any golden calf.